On the third anniversary of the November 9th capitulation agreement, Nikol Pashinyan, the coordinator of the treasonous faction, essentially announced Armenia's final capitulation and congratulated the Armenian people from the international podium of the Paris Peace Forum. Pashinyan has not only relinquished the title to Artsakh and renounced all Armenian rights and claims, thus giving Aliyev guarantees that he would close the issues of Artsakh and Armenian refugees once and for all. But he has done a much more dangerous act of acting as Aliyev's agent and introducing the so-called Western Azerbaijan thesis on the international arena of the Paris Peace Forum.
Nevertheless, dear participants, I have not come to this peace forum to talk about war. I have come to talk about peace, even though Azerbaijan has started to call the Republic of Armenia West Azerbaijan, after implementing yet the minimum of its plan of Armenian cleansing. The concept of so-called Western Azerbaijan, which is a concept of preparing a new war against the Republic of Armenia, is propaganded in schools, universities, and mass media of Azerbaijan.
That is quite a dangerous statement that Pashinyan, the greatest deceiver and traitor of the Armenian people, is trying to import into the international political arena. Pashinyan's geopolitical roadmap for the short term is to legitimize Aliyev's dream of the so-called Western Azerbaijan. In the long run, it is to reproduce himself as the appointed ruler of Western Azerbaijan, accompanied by his disguised pseudo-pro-Westerners. The far-reaching game plan of the Russian-Turkish scheme is for Pashinyan to implement the surrender of the enclaves in the very near future, and then gradually, region by region, the surrender of the entire country, including Yerevan, after which he will finally proclaim Armenia as Western Azerbaijan. However, an inevitable internal political crisis is brewing in Armenia against the backdrop of Artsakh's surrender, and due to lack of legitimacy and the hatred towards Pashinyan's regime, the National Democratic Alliance demonstrates on a daily basis that it is the only real pro-Western opposition leading the Armenian people and the only viable alternative to the governing treasonous gang. More than ever, the Armenian people are realizing the necessity of revolutionary change and consider that route as the only way to save the country. Moscow is frantically trying to fully implement the Lavrov plan of destruction of the Armenian statehood while it still has influence in the region and can do so through its loyal yes-man Pashinyan. However, Russia also clearly understands that after its open collaboration and premeditated implementation of ethnic cleansing of Armenians from Artsakh, it has completely lost the trust of the Armenian people, who consider it to be an equally genocidal enemy as Azerbaijan. Therefore, realizing that by extension Pashinyan is also being blamed for complicity in the Russian-Azeri plan of ethnic cleansing, Moscow has decided that in order to keep Pashinyan in power, it has no other choice but to rehabilitate Pashinyan by reincarnating him as the new pro-Western and pseudo-anti-Russian kid on the block, who supposedly is moving towards the West. Putin has assessed the situation quite soberly. Therefore, he is betting on rehabilitating Pashinyan as a pro-Western oriented new leader and not his other two options of old and trusted sworn pro-Russian yes-men of Kacharyan and Sarkisyan, since Armenians would never believe that those two have changed allegiance. Pashinyan, on the other hand, is more believable that will sway from one extreme to the other, since all his life he has been an unprincipled populist who has never kept a promise. Kremlin's scenario of rehabilitating and reincarnating Pashinyan is quite obvious. They might repeat the infamous operation of snap elections, as they did after the disgraceful war of 2020. To have the outcome that it desires in the snap elections, Kremlin has not only fully submerged itself in rehabilitating Pashinyan, but has also created or supports 24 pseudo-pro-Western NGOs and political parties, which will play a pivotal role in keeping Pashinyan's flank in the snap elections, thus guaranteeing the passage into parliament of the so-called Western-oriented parties, who in reality are Kremlin stooges in disguise. These new pseudo-Western-oriented parliamentarians will replace the old unabashed pro-Kremlin guard of Kacharyan and Sarkisyan duo. These new pseudo-pro-Western gang, but in reality a pro-Kremlin English-speaking crafty guys, are ready to dismantle the Armenian statehood under Pashinyan's leadership and plan to establish Western Azerbaijan shortly thereafter. There are possibly two scenarios. The Plan A scenario will result in the reproduction of Pashinyan's treasonous regime as the appointed rulers of Western Azerbaijan, and these crafty guys will act as opposition, while the Plan B scenario will be direct Azeri Turkish rule, where the only issue to resolve for the new rulers will be Pashinyan and the gang's physical safety, which possibly will be solved the same way as it was done with the Artsakh authorities. Moscow's treacherous plan is obvious. The Armenian people should, for the sake of self-preservation, if nothing more, show political consciousness and will to get rid of these Turkish elements within us as soon as possible. The National Democratic Alliance must comprehensively explain to the Armenian people the dire situation that we are in at this time, and clearly show that the path out of it is the nationwide uprising against the Turkish Trojan horse planted in the center of Yerevan by Russia.